Hello and thanks for joining the Tuesday edition of Journalist Hangout. I'm Ayodele Ozubakun. Today on the program, U.S. President Donald Trump expresses concern over killings in Nigeria, says they must stop. Boko Haram faction holds on communities in the Lake Chad area, imposes taxes on residents. I'll be hanging out with Babajide Kolade Otitoju, Olayinka Oyegbile, and Dr. Ruben Abati will be making his debut today. So if you're ready, let the hangout start now. Now, the greatest responsibility of any government is to secure the lives and property of its citizens, irrespective of how such government fares in other sectors. Failure to provide adequate security for its people overshadows their other achievements. Over the years, herdsmen killing spree in the northern and middle belt region of Nigeria has served as a constant reminder of the other demons we face as a nation aside from insurgency. The perceived poor handling of the menace by the Nigerian government has not been unnoticed by world leaders who are concerned as the Nigerian masses. Just yesterday, U.S. President Donald Trump expressed concern about the killings of Christians by marauding herdsmen. He wants the killings to stop and offered to help the federal government in defeating this form of terror. Is the federal government incapable of handling the situation? Dr. Abati, let me start from you. At last, President Buhari met Donald Trump. How do you see President Buhari's his performance yesterday? Let me start from that.
Well, I mean, I spoke on this subject, I think, yesterday, and I said, well, the phrase I used yesterday was so far so good, because as at that time, the press briefing was just ending. And my take is that if you look at it, all things considered, I would say that it's been a good outing for President Buhari and his team, and also for Nigeria. Why do I say so? Before that trip, there was a lot of anxiety among Nigerians. You know, the president had gone to the Commonwealth Summit in London, and he made a gaffe, and that riled, that caused a lot of anger amongst Nigerians when he said Nigerian youths are lazy people. Okay, when he was going to the United States, many Nigerians felt, oh, this man will come again, he will go and say something.
The PDP will address the press conference.
Either about the other room, or about Nigerian youth, or he will say something again that is scandalous. But I think that his managers, they were careful. You see that he himself, in responding to the questions, was very diplomatic. So I think he himself and those handling him must have realized that if he went to the United States and he made another mistake, or a faux pas or a gaffe, that would be really costly for his administration. So in terms of his comportment, in terms of his mien, in terms of the issues that were addressed, you could say, yes, the speech that he offered was not original enough, but in terms of his general comportment, I think that it came across well. However, it's not about a diplomatic meeting with a strategic country like the United States. It's not about me, it's not about gauge, it's not about comportment in the final analysis. It is about the substance of it. Okay, and if you look at the substance, you've dealt with one of the issues, national security, but I would have loved to see a number of issues addressed in greater detail. For example, trade. President Trump was talking about selling equipment to Nigeria and all of that, but President Buhari could not, put something on the table in terms of trade with the United States. And there's this trade imbalance between the United States and Nigeria. And then I thought that the issue of the coming elections will be also on the table, but unfortunately they didn't discuss that, because next year Nigeria is going to have a general election. I would have liked to listen to President Buhari assuring the international community about his commitment to free and fair elections, to electoral integrity, to strengthen the relevant institutions, the police, the security agencies in general, the INEC, to ensure that the process next year is clean, is free, is credible, is believable. Okay, but he talked about agriculture.
Okay, Doctor, let me allow Jide to intervene now, and we'll still come back to the full, the discussion of the press conference proper. But Jide, President Trump appears to have demonstrated so much respect for Buhari. What benefits have we derived from this trip? We know the last time President Buhari visited under Barack Obama too, but Obama too, kind of showed his respect and admiration for President Buhari. What will all this bring together for us?
Yeah, yesterday was a happy day for Nigeria. The American president from the off had shown clearly that he was prepared to work with President Buhari, and I was prepared to help him defeat terror, because that is one thing that I hold against the administration of Barack Obama, because every move that Goodluck Jonathan made to get America to sell weapons to it, Obama frustrated. Even when we wanted to go through a third party to buy Chinook helicopters from Israel, the US government, led by Obama, still frustrated it by directing the Israelis not to sell those weapons to us. And now you had a Donald Trump. From the first day, he showed an interest in selling weapons to our president. He told our president to visit him. He said, I'll be willing to receive you in America, So, and yesterday, he also talked at least twice about his respect for the Nigerian president because of his integrity and all that. I think over there's a general feeling that the average Nigerian is corrupt, because he even used an adjective yesterday that I found really derogatory in describing Nigeria as a country. Nigeria is a country noted for monumental corruption, massive corruption, something along that line. I felt bad. But he said he was happy that this administration is working hard to defeat corruption. The administration may not have achieved so much, because we know that defeating corruption goes beyond what is done at the federal level. It has to percolate to every sector of our country. Every facet of our country must feel the fight against corruption. Otherwise, this administration will leave and not much will be achieved. But at least that the international community can see that there's an effort to defeat corruption. It's a good day. I mean, it's good for us. And you remember that even Rex Tillerson, before he was fired, Trump had sent him to some African countries, and he came to Nigeria. That speaks to the value that he places on the relationship between the U.S. and Nigeria. And yesterday, he said, you couldn't buy weapons from us before, but I made that happen. So that people don't begin to give the credit to someone. He said, I made that happen. Which means if a president is really determined to help you defeat corruption.
The determination we didn't see on the part of Obama.
Yes, whether that law, that Leahy law, whether it was there or not, this president of America was prepared to help us get around that law and supply us with the kind of weapons that will give us a head start in the war against terror.
Now, there is always a bit of apprehension when the president travels abroad. He is accused of always demarketing Nigeria. How do you see his performance yesterday?
Personally, I think just as the doctor has said, the president did very well, marvelously well. What was unexpected was what happened. For instance, if you have spoken with some Nigerians and you have checked the social media, many people are saying that he was silent when he never replied the president of the US when he said the American government will not tolerate further killing of Christians. And I said, no, he doesn't have to reply directly. The reason is this. Whatever happens in Nigeria or whatever happens anywhere in the world, we have said it here before, the first thing is that human beings are being killed. Forget whether they are Christians, Muslims, animists, or whatever. The important thing we should talk about is that human beings are being killed. The life of a Christian is not more valuable than the life of a Muslim. Neither is it more valuable than the life of an animist or a non-believer. So for the president not to have directly said, okay, this and that, I think that was a statesmanly thing he has done, because there was no need for him to engage the American president when the man talked about Christians being killed. Yes, the important thing is that we must, what it needs to do is to make sure that killings stop in Nigeria. Not whether they are Christians or Muslims. It is just a by the way thing that, well, the president is a Muslim, yes. Does that mean, is there any president anywhere in the world who will support the killing of any other religion or any other ethnic group because they are not? His votes cut across all ethnic and religious lines. So for him, I think what he did yesterday are totally commendable, just as the doctor has said, because...
All right, Dr. Abati.
Okay, I wanted to add a number of footnotes.
Okay, you can add before I ask my question.
Okay. The first thing is, Yotitoju was talking about individual respect for President Buhari and all that. Well, I don't know whether there is a special code among septuagenarians, you know, how they relate with each other. But I think that is not really about individual respect. This is really about recognition for Nigeria. The Americans, they are very methodical, you know, they run a methodical system. For President Buhari to have been invited to the White House was a deliberate strategic decision by the United States government. And I think that the credit should go to Nigeria in terms of the importance of Nigeria. America recognizes Nigeria as, you know, a very strategic economic powerhouse in Africa. Two, it also recognizes the fact that if Nigeria implodes, it will have implications for global security. Three, America also recognizes that, you know, the crisis of terrorism, the problem of global terrorism that has also found place in parts of Nigeria is of international interest. Okay, and then fourth, America wants to sell arms and ammunition to Nigeria.
Because I wanted to ask you about the trade imbalance between Nigeria and the US. Do you agree that President Buhari should have pressurized Trump to buy our oil? Crude oil?
Well, he didn't push on that score. You know, it was a press conference, but at least he showed an understanding of the dilemma, okay? In the light of shale oil and all of that, and America being, you know, a major trading partner. But what people must realize is that everything is not resolved at a press conference or at a bilateral meeting. You know, if you looked at that press briefing, they were dealing with just some of the basic issues that were discussed. There are other levels of engagement, you know, at ministerial levels, also at the level of the US-Nigeria Binational Commission. Now, and that is where the challenge is. What is the quality of representation that we take to those strategic meetings where follow-up actions are initiated? And I think that one of the major failings of the foreign policy process in Nigeria is that we sign a lot of agreements. We enter into all kinds of you know, bilateral agreements, but we don't supply enough capacity to follow up. And that's why, you know, after this kind of meeting, the ceremony is fine. What we're describing is just the ceremony. And that's why I talked earlier on about the substance of it. The substance of it is what you gain from it. Yes. And the Americans, they have the expertise, they have the experience, they have the institutions to make sure that they take their own part of the bargain. Is Nigeria ready to take advantage of it and maximize the opportunity, the meeting, the gains, the real details, which may not never, ever be in the public domain, but which may be in Nigeria's strategic interest. That's where the challenge is, in my view.
Babajide, now, from the beginning, Trump showed a kind of interest in helping Nigeria to defeat terrorism. Now, beyond the sale of Tucano fighter bombers, and how else can America help in the area of terrorism and security?
Yes, and they can help train our troops. They certainly have the expertise. Beyond supplying us with those 12 Tucano fighter bombers, they can also help us in the area of intelligence gathering. They have the equipment, they have the manpower. I think that what Nigeria will benefit the most from the Americans is in terms of the knowledge of warfare that they have in abundance, in terms of the training that they can give our troops, because for so long, the Nigerian soldiers have not received the kind of training that they deserve, you know, that will give them an edge, you know, in real battle situations. Abacha tried during his time. Some of the troops were trained in North Korea, some of them in Libya and all that. We used to train our troops in Sandos and all of those fantastic military institutions across the world. The like of Babangida, the rest of them, they went to Sandos. But all that stopped because General Babangida made up his mind that you do not need large troops in peacetime. He also cannibalized the Air Force as a kind of response to the so-called coup that the one involving Mamman Vasa. You know, many of the soldiers involved, many of the officers involved were Air Force officers. The Martin Luthers of this world, one of the best pilots to ever come out of our country. So, to kind of punish the Air Force, he grounded their fighter jets and refused to even allow officers to go for training. If you remember the public hearing that the Nigerian Senate organized just before Goodluck Jonathan left power, Colonel Saleh, Senator Saleh, who was representing Kaduna Central at that time, said that the worst that you can do to an officer is not to train him. That Babangida even froze training of military officers. And that an officer without training is like a useless officer. So America can help by sending its personnel to train our troops. I know that for the Tucano jets that we have bought, that will be delivered in the 2020, just as I said some time ago, that it won't be delivered under 2 years. They are going to send people who will train the Air Force personnel that will use the Tucano. But I'm saying that beyond that, they can help train even our police. So these are areas in which they have expertise, and we need to be in position to learn from them. Because, you know, because of their strategic relationship with Iraq, they had to train Iraqi troops. And you saw that immediately America got involved, the table turned. Iraq rolled back all the gains that ISIS had made in their country. And today, ISIS has been chased out of the last territory, the last part of Iraq that it was holding on to, thanks to the American officers who were on ground. They were on ground from the beginning. You know, they didn't directly get involved in the battle, but they were involved in tactical support and training. So training will go a long way in improving the quality of our...
Let me throw the same question to you. That beyond this Super Tucano and everything, how can they help us? Because we are faced with Boko Haram in the northeast, and in the north central now, and some other parts of the country, we are faced with this herdsmen.
Intelligence gathering, just as you have said, is the greatest thing that they can do. Because you see now, what we don't have very serious intelligence officers. That the kind of intelligence gathering that we do is either we don't gather intelligence at all, or we gather and we don't make use of it. And what does it take? The intelligence gathering has gone beyond just mixing up with people and all that. There are gadgets that could help you to do all this. And these are all the things that we need. And with this understanding with the American government, what remains is for our officers and the leadership of the military to be ready to deploy the real people who will be able to learn and pass this on. Because, I mean, it is useless if you have intelligence gathering machines and all that, but you don't have people who can use it, or people who can properly use it. And monitoring also has to be very, very important. This is because, for instance now, let's take an example from the police. We have a situation where you give police, the police vehicles to move around to check, to monitor security and all that. But what do they use it for? They use it to extort people and all that. So there must be real monitoring and supervision that will make it useful.
All right.
I would like to comment
Doctor,
on this.
When we come back, let me just quickly take this breather. Let's pay these bills. When we come back, we'll talk more. It's still Journalist Hangout. If you're just joining us, we'll continue with this topic when we come back from the break. If you're just joining us, this is Journalist Hangout. We're reaching you live from our headquarters here in Lagos, Nigeria, Television Continental. And before we went on break, we're talking about those things we can benefit, apart from the Super Tucano bomber the Americans will be selling to us. And Dr. Abati, before we went on that break, you were about to intervene.
Yeah, I was going to comment on some of the issues that were raised by my colleagues. First, see, there's been cooperation at the level of security, at the level of military training of security personnel between Nigeria and the United States for a very long time. And the Nigerian soldiers are probably among the best trained on the continent of Africa. So it wouldn't be right to say, well, they are not getting the kind of training they got when we used to send people to Sandhurst and all that. The framework for that is in place, okay? And government after government, or the military as an institution, has been ensuring that our officers are well trained. I get the point that Otitoju made, however, about equipment. Now, that became an issue in the face of the threat of terrorism, which overstretched the Nigerian military. And I think that the Nigerian military is overstretched.
I wanted to ask, why was it
They are not
difficult?
only involved in combating Boko Haram, they are involved in ensuring internal security. They're really overstretched, and they need to be commended. You know, and I've seen a lot of gallantry, I've seen a lot of courage, I've seen a lot of commitment on the part of the Nigerian military that you probably will not find on the part of other security agencies in Nigeria. So we commend the armed forces. However, the point about equipment, yes, he dwelt heavily on what happened under Babangida and all that, and military leaders. But it had to take a civilian president under Goodluck Jonathan to change all of that, to initiate a process of reforming and developing the Nigerian military, okay? And I say this as somebody who was a witness to all of that, right? It was under Jonathan, for example, that the drones, you know, were applied, more equipment was bought, the Defense Corporation was rehabilitated. But the problem about arms and ammunition was that the United States government, under the Democrats, okay, don't let's say Obama, under the Democrats, raised issues about human rights abuses and all of that, and was blocking, you know, Nigeria's attempt to have access internationally to arms and ammunition. It was towards the end of that administration that we finally succeeded. We went to Israel, we went everywhere, eventually we went to Russia. We even went to South Africa, okay? And you will notice that towards the end of that administration, there was increased momentum in terms of checking Boko Haram. So we have to deal with the facts, you know, and not revise history. Now, the Republicans are there now, and they are more willing to sell arms and ammunition to Nigeria, which is fine. But what was established by the Jonathan administration is, you know, what has been used to further prosecute the war. But we also have to understand the nature of terrorism. It's not conventional warfare. And when the Buhari administration says Boko Haram has been technically defeated, what you are faced with now is that indeed this is not conventional warfare. It's corrosive. The very nature of it, even the international community has not been able to determine it. So the issue, therefore, is that the major challenge we have is the attempt to politicize the military, to politicize the fight against Boko Haram, to run it on a partisan basis,
all right.
Which is
all right.
not how it should be.
From my own estimation, what the last administration, what did they do that this administration is not doing? Or what have they done better than the last administration in terms of procurement of this equipment to combat terrorism? And how has the U.S. government in any way helped in securing this equipment?
Well, everything I said earlier was true. They refused to sell to us. We tried to buy from third parties that the Americans had sold some weapons to. And they still told those guys, they still vetoed the sale of some of those equipment to us. The Goodluck Jonathan administration tried to buy Chinook helicopters from Israel. America vetoed it. We tried to buy equipment from Argentina. It was vetoed. So whether it was the Democrats who did it, the one thing was clear. Obama was the president.
The buck stops.
And this man was supposed to be an African president, first African-American president. But he didn't see the need. If at that time he had sold those weapons, because Jonathan was so desperate that wherever he could find weapons, he was going. When they went to South Africa and Nigerians made so much noise about money kept in a plane, they wanted to buy weapons through the black market because they had tried other means and it was not going to work.
How do you find it on shelf?
We always tell people that weapons are not what you can buy like candy in a store. You will place an order for it, and 2 years, 3 years. In fact, I remember the last deal that the Indians signed with the Americans to supply them with Apache helicopters. It's going to take 4 years for them to deliver. So, and a government that was running against time now felt, wherever we could find these weapons, let's just go and find them. We eventually bought T-72 Russian tanks. We went to Ukraine, got T-72 Russian tanks, which gave us an edge before the election when we recovered all those towns from Boko Haram. I'm particularly disappointed in Obama that what Trump has done for us now, he refused to do. Maybe we will have defeated Boko Haram if at infancy we had been allowed to buy those weapons.
All right, we have to move on now. Nigerians are certainly used to taking most of the words that emanate from the lips of politicians with a pinch of salt. But what they are definitely not accustomed to is second-guessing the Nigerian military that is charged with the responsibility of safeguarding them against external and internal aggression. Perhaps that is why the people have chosen to be supportive of these gallant troops that pay the ultimate price for the safety of the nation. But just like the Nigerian politicians, the army isn't without guilt. Series of propaganda have emerged from the Nigerian army and the federal government on the ongoing war against insurgents in the northeastern part of the country, claiming that the group no longer holds any territory in the country. Contrary to this, Reuters news agency, in a recent report, claims that a faction of Boko Haram is actually in control of territories in the Lake Chad area where it imposes taxes on residents. Has the army joined the leagues of Nigerian politicians? Doctor, let me start from you, Yinka Oyebile. Now, what is this all about and what can the army do? Let me just reverse it like that.
Well, first of all, the news emanates from Reuters. It's a foreign news agency. There's no doubt about their capability and what they can do. But another way we should look at it is this. If they are not holding any territory, how are they able to ask for tax from people? Jide has always been saying it, and we have always been reiterating it here. Let me use his word. It's a lie from the pit of hell. for anyone to say that Boko Haram is not. They may not be holding the territories as it used to be. For instance, let's take Agege in Lagos as an example. If you know Agege very well, even if it is only in Pensinema area, it doesn't extend to the stadium they are holding. And is that still not a territory? It's still a territory. So for the Nigerian army to continue to insist that they don't hold, the Boko Haram doesn't hold any territory again, is a lie. And we have seen this.
I think it's more of the politicians saying that. It's more, you hardly even find the soldiers say that.
Okay.
It's the politicians saying that most of the time.
Okay, but now, how are they able to exact taxes from people?
It's very bad.
I was reading now, they said if you have a cow, you are going to pay 2,500. If you have smaller animals, you pay 1,500 to them.
And they'll give you a grazing
And
area.
exactly. And that they don't even do it, all this they do to civilians.
That's supposed to be a Federal Republic of
Exactly.
Nigeria.
So that means for whatever it is worth, they are still holding, even if it is a finger size,
No
they are
matter
still
how
holding
small
it.
it is. Dr. Abati,
territory.
what's really the problem? Are we guilty of underrating these enemies?
Well, I made the point earlier that terrorism is not your conventional issue that you deal with. And one of the things we discovered is that part of the training of Nigerian security agents, either the police or the military, probably previously did not include training in dealing with terrorism. It's only recently that we're beginning to develop the knowledge and develop the expertise. And then even the political leaders are learning in the process of dealing with it and managing the crisis. But what is important is that the territorial integrity of Nigeria has to be defended, has to be protected, okay? And nobody, by whatever label or title or description, can alienate any part of the Nigerian territory. So if, as Reuters reports, you have a group of bandits who have no uniform, who probably don't have a brigade that you can identify, and whose methods are totally unusual, then of course it's the responsibility of the state to make it impossible for them to compromise the integrity of the Nigerian state. Okay? So if they are holding, as we have been told, up to about 100 miles between Yobe and another state and all that, then of course the job of government is to check their impunity. Okay? But I make the point that I made earlier again, that this should not be politicized.
Yeah, okay.
Nigeria belongs to all of us. The safety of Nigeria, the security of every Nigerian is something that should be non-partisan.
Yeah.
What I object to is the attempt to play politics with every detail. Okay? There was a point I left out earlier when we were talking about the jets bought from the Americans. Yes, the Americans want to sell their jets, but we have left out the question of the procedure for buying those jets, for paying for those jets. Maybe that's not part of your focus on this program. But the National Assembly is already kicking about how President Buhari has violated Section 80 of the Constitution.
Now, Jide, you've always said, they've always said we've defeated the enemy. In fact, Femi Adesina said it last week that the Boko Haram does not control any town in Nigeria. Now, we talk to people, we see people, we get reports, we have reporters down this area. From the feelers you've gotten, I want specifics.
Now, Femi Adesina knows next to nothing about the Northeast, especially Borno State. I have not seen any Nigerian soldier, and I'm saying this with a high sense of responsibility. I've not seen any Nigerian soldier who will stand in my front, hold onto his Bible or his Quran, and say Boko Haram is not holding any territory in Nigeria. I've not seen that soldier. And I deal with soldiers a lot. I relate with them a lot. So, and I've said repeatedly that there are 3 local governments in Borno State where Boko Haram is holding on to territories. Mate, for example, Mate, as the army said that they need 3 months to flush these guys out, Mate local government is an area that they will concentrate on because it's the last local government in Borno State. That is close to the border with Chad. The islands of Lake Chad, the Mama and Noor faction is in charge. And I'm going to mention towns that they are controlling. Because I know people are watching, they know those areas. Bagadaza, Chikingudu, Hausari, Mosari. These are towns, these are communities that these guys control. Whatever Reuters said that, okay, they are taking taxes from people and all that, these are the places where it is happening. The soldiers know that these are places that Boko Haram controls. There's nobody who truly fears God who is involved in that operation or who is a senior official in Borno State to the point that he gets security reports who will come and say Boko Haram does not hold any territory in Nigeria. Why have we decided to launch a 3-month operation? It's because we want to chase them out of those places that they control. And the commander of Operation Lafia Adole said it clearly. He said, when we flush them out, we will hold. For God's sake, what's the meaning? We will hold. That means when you send them packing from the communities that they are holding on to, you will now put your troops there so that you know that you've taken the territory from them for keeps. So this is a fact. We want this war to be won. But to go on lying that they are not holding on any territory, I always ask the question, where are they keeping the Chibok girls?
Okay,
where did they take the Dapchi girls to when they kidnapped them? It's Nigerian territory.
I have Max. Max is calling us from Ghana. Thank you for joining us, Max.
Yes, sir. Good evening, and good evening to the gentleman there.
Good evening, Max.
Babajide, how are you, sir?
I'm fine. I greet you.
It's been a long time.
Thanks.
I just want to go. I am in Ghana. I was a former member of the Nigerian Armed Forces military. I served at 29 Battalion in Atinguru. I think presently they are in Borough Camp in Port Harcourt. You see, the issue of taxation from the Gendarmerie started long time ago, before 1994. I was at Nguru Barracks 1994 when I was enlisted. Abacha did everything to flush those people out from that particular place. You see, coming to Boko Haram, I do not believe that Boko Haram is not controlling any territory in Nigeria. It is a very vast place. Jide knows what I'm talking about.
Yes.
So I would like, the army I joined before is no longer the army I am seeing performing right now. It's quite a pity. I just pray that something good will happen to that. The army will do justice to this Boko Haram over there. I bleed in Ghana here when I hear most of the things that are happening over there. Thank you and have a great day.
Thank you, Max, for your insight. Thank you, Max, for your insight. When Yinka, when you look at these things and you want to say, look, if the federal government will just bring their searchlights on these areas, I don't know, maybe because of the topography, like the Chad region, that Mama Non faction have been hearing so much about their activities. I don't know what we should deploy. Maybe it's, first of all, the Air Force to do.
No, it's the Air Force. The place is not easy to access for the army. The soldiers will confess to you. It's not easy to access. Because of many years of people not fishing in portions of the Lake Chad, some parts of Lake Chad have been overgrown with weeds.
Yeah.
Now you want to, even if it's amphibious assault that you want to launch against them, you cannot move freely on that kind of water because it's already overgrown.
Yeah, but
with
again,
weeds.
the military,
so they will need the Air
be...
Force, especially they are going to use the Mi-35, our ground attack helicopters. They're already preparing. So it is when they have softened them up totally that the soldiers will now come in to take the territory. That is the plan.
The military cannot give excuses. Whatever the terrain, the military anywhere in the world, operates like a team. And that's why you have different categories. So any form of excuse is unacceptable. Again, there's the international dimension to it. Okay, there is the international cooperation among the regional bodies. There is the Lake Chad Commission. Meetings are held on a regular basis. That needs to be strengthened. We have a committee.
Now it's not really working because of funding.
We have a regional committee.
It's not working.
We have a regional committee on small arms proliferation, small arms and ammunition. Okay.
Yeah,
now that also has to be strengthened. And then, of course, in Washington, President Buhari himself drew attention to one of the challenges about the border control. Okay, how much of that have we done? And apart from the expression of good intentions, how much has been done, you know, to ensure that those borders are really controlled to discourage this?
Not overstretched in terms of the people that can man this, because I was told that you have almost hundreds of points that enters into Nigeria.
1,400 illegal points.
Yes, there are. But as has been emphasized, all you need to do is either to recruit more personnel, and then those that are on the ground, you deploy them effectively. There is nowhere in that kind of a situation where only the ground troop will work. The Air Force, the Navy, and they have to have a joint force to be able to approach the enemy at the same time. We saw that in Iraq when the Gulf War was going on. You first of all have to do the area survey and bombardment and all that. Then the ground forces will join and you capture what you want to capture. Because as long as they are not working together, it is not going to work. You have the Lake Chad. You need the Navy to use their expertise of the river or the lake to navigate the lake. You need the Army, you need the Air Force and all that. So those are the things that have to work together to be able to defeat this terror. And you know, there is when President Buhari first came in, he traveled to Chad, he traveled to Cameroon, he traveled all around the countries that are around, that surround us. He traveled there. What has happened to that effort?
It's a funding issue.
That's
why the president of Chad was very angry and he said he was going to pull out.
What it means is that we are the greater victim. If we are the greater victim and we have the resources, what stops us from giving them
I wanted
money?
to ask you that what can the army do that we have 3 months of onslaught against this Boko Haram? What do you think can get that job done on time?
You see,
because you talk about the rainy season.
The current, yes, I'm sure they are worried now. They want to get the job done before the rain sets in. But once the rain sets in, it's always difficult to deal with these guys. You know, so what they are trying to do is flush these guys out before the rains fully set in that part of the country. But the key to achieving victory is to provide the necessary equipment for these guys. You don't just send troops. We are packing men, officers and men to the northeast. Do they have all that they desire? Do they have all the equipment that they need? How many of our main battle tanks, as we speak, are serviceable? How many? Because I know that in a battalion, it is expected that 88 APCs, armored personnel carriers, will be deployed in the event of war in any battalion. But today, as we speak in Nigeria, do we really have the Nigerian Army? Does it have 88 serviceable APCs? Do they have? In a tank brigade, you have 54 tanks in a tank brigade going to war. Can we afford that? Do we have that? So these are the little things. It's not enough to just say, okay, we are sending so many troops. They must be efficiently equipped. They must be well equipped.
Okay, let me take
the difference.
Bobby is calling us from Taraba State. Thank you for hanging on, Bobby. Hello, Bobby.
Yeah, good evening. Yeah, good evening, my people. Good to see Dr. Ruben Abati on your program today.
All right.
Thank you very much.
And I would just like to reflect on one thing that Babajide is always emphasizing on. That life of the pit of hell that these people are claiming they've defeated Boko Haram, it's not visible. It will never be visible. The truth of the matter is the government has failed. They keep promising and failing Nigerians. The only thing that we just need in this country is God's intervention. The issue of somebody telling us that he has defeated Boko Haram or maybe finishing his insurgency, it's another lie from the pit of hell. Well done, guys, and let's keep doing it.
Thank you, Bobby. Thank you for your intervention. Now, Dr. Ruben, I wanted to ask you that are we getting enough supply from our neighbors? You mentioned it the other time. Enough support from our neighbors, to defeat these guys.
Well, the national security advisors and the security chiefs, they meet, on a regular basis, standard regular meetings, to compare notes. But of course, you know that the main issue about security, either regional security or national security, is about the political will. And, also in terms of weight, in terms of resources, these countries have uneven weight, okay? But there is, at least on paper, a commitment to cooperate, to ensure cross-border, cross-regional, cooperation in line with ECOWAS protocols, EU protocols, and United Nations protocols. Because what we're dealing with is not just terrorism in Nigeria, it's global terrorism. The faction that has seized parts of Nigeria, 100 miles region, as described by Reuters, is the Islamic State in West Africa, okay, the ISIS. And of course, that that's not just a Nigerian creation. Yeah. But I think that we should stress this point about political will, because we're not dealing not just with terrorism, we're dealing with a national security crisis. We have not talked about herdsmen, well, we mentioned that earlier, herdsmen killings. That also is a major threat inside Nigeria. We have not talked about kidnappings. We have not talked about the crisis in the crisis in the Niger Delta, okay? Yeah. Low-level insurgency in many parts of the country.
I have a caller. Prince is calling us from Kano.
Hello, good evening. God bless you.
Yes, good evening.
Yeah, I really want to appreciate the people over there. You are doing a good job.
Thank you, Prince.
This Boko Haram issue, I don't know, is somewhat confusing. Boko Haram issue, I don't know, is somewhat confusing. Now, a woman came from what is it called? He came from Borno the other time, and he was on Focus Nigeria. And the woman was saying that she knows where this Boko Haram is, and one of her child is there. That she visited them per time. And up to now, the woman was on Focus Nigeria. Up to now, nobody has asked questions, or how far have we gone with that woman, if we can go through to the Boko Haram through that woman. Now, our president has gone to America. He's going to UK the other time, and he has gone to America. And he's been saying, these herdsmen of a thing, they are from Libya, they are from this. So which are we going to depend on now?
Okay.
The Boko Haram or the herdsmen from Libya?
Thank you, Prince. And follow up to what he said, because we were talking about, America has always clamored to have a base, West African base, around us. Do you see American boots on the ground someday?
I don't know. It's difficult to say it will never happen. It's difficult to say. Trump was saying the other day that America doesn't want to remain the policeman of the world. But something might just happen, and in anger, an American president, especially if the president is of the Republican hue, because Republican presidents are usually more aggressive, and defense contractors, they usually make more money under a Republican presidency. So one of the things that the American president would want to do is to sell weapons. For someone like Trump, he believes that by selling these weapons to us, he is improving the economy of America, which is different to shipping jobs abroad. You get the point. It's American contractors now manufacturing these weapons and selling. He is happy about that. They've always, under Republicans, researches are always going on to manufacture the best range of weapons. So that's why people think that sometimes the Americans deliberately trigger wars here and there so that they can even test some of the weapons that they have manufactured. So you can never say, I know that they want to go, stay somewhere in Ghana. Nobody can say with finality that it will never happen.
Dr. Coasting home now.
Well, I mean, Nigeria as a sovereign state has a responsibility to ensure the security and welfare of its own people. Okay? We can get cooperation from outside sources, but we should not go as far as imagining that someday Nigeria will see the responsibility to provide security to any outside force. That in itself will create problems. So the message is for political leaders in Nigeria to summon the will and to deploy the resources to ensure that they do the needful and ensure that Nigeria is secure. After all, when you started the program, you said that the basic responsibility of government is security and welfare of the people, and that's a constitutional responsibility.
Your parting shot on this.
The issue of having a station in Africa and all that, America, you know, it was Nigeria that kicked against it. That was why it didn't work that time. And I don't see any Nigerian president agreeing to it. Internal security, Nigeria will provide it, would struggle to provide it. We will seek for cooperation, but will not be dictated to by an external power on how to maintain our internal security.
I'll thank you all. Thank you, Dr. Ruben Abati, for making your debut on Journalist Hangout. We wish to see you often, son. Thank you. And thank you. And Mestre himself, Babajide Kolade Otitoju. And that's it on Journalist Hangout today. Join us tomorrow for another episode of the program. You can watch the repeat broadcast tonight at 11. You can also watch Journalist Hangouts on our other platforms showing on the screen. You can catch us on YouTube. That's youtube.com/TVC News Nigeria. Our feedback channel is Journalist Hangout at tvcnews.tv. I'm Ayodele Ozubaku. Bye for now, and God bless Nigeria.